I Am Alive is a 2012 game that was first announced in 2003, making its title less a title and more of an exclamation to the developers, Darkwoods. At some point in 2008, Ubisoft Shanghai took the reins, just so they too could put I Am Alive on ice. They did actually announce the game though, and they released some vague trailers, promising a post-apocalyptic survival game that made me erroneously assume it was a bit like SOS: The Final Escape, a game that was interesting. It disappeared for a few more years, until it was re-announced as an XBLA game that looked like a post-apocalyptic Uncharted light. It was kind of unfair, but it did kill my interest. I mean, I like Uncharted and all, but, you know. Anyway, it came up on the Steam sales last year, and I bought it, and forgot about it until maybe a week ago. It was just there, sitting in my Steam library untouched, with other games like A Valley Without Wind and The Political Machine 2012. Fuck. Prey. Didn't even know I had Prey. So, I'm Alive teaches us that in the post-apocalypse, the biggest threat to mankind is banality. It begins with a framing device, a woman watching a recording left on some bloke's camcorder. This bloke has spent a year walking across America after some pretty awful event.
It's been almost a year now since the event.
To get back to his family's home, to find his wife and daughter. Oh, I know who's watching the camcorder. Alright. Anyway, he has to put the camcorder away to cross the city bridge, which has a toll, the payment of which is one tutorial, which pretty much outlines all but 2 things you'll be doing on repeat for the next 4 hours, so pay attention. Or actually don't bother, because the tutorial will tell you to do the same shit at least 4 times. The tutorial pop-up even got me killed. Look, I had to aim a gun at this guy, so I pressed the aim button, then the tutorial came up telling me how to aim. The only way to get it to go away was to release the aim button, giving him and his mate ample time to insert things into me. The game probably got a twinge annoyed that I was getting ahead of myself. Also, I couldn't find any way to turn these hints off. I feel a touch insulted, and killed. Anyway, some bloke arrives at his house to find that in the year since the apocalypse began, his wife and daughter left.
Are you there?
Presumably about 5 minutes after the apocalypse began, because, you know, in an apocalypse situation you have to get moving pretty quickly.
Find us. We'll be waiting for you.
Anyway, the protagonist goes outside and sees a little girl also trying to escape the tutorial. He assumes 2 things. Oh, that's my daughter. And secondly, that's really convenient. He later retracts both assumptions upon realising neither was true. After killing a bunch of blokes to save her life, Adam Jensen gives us a ring, assuming we want something from him for the little girl. We don't, and we do offer to get her to safety, the bloke deciding to put off the hunt for his wife and kid for the moment. I mean, it makes sense, it's been a year. What more could an hour or 2 hurt? So Henry and our bloke decide to meet up, first getting some bloke to a nearby mall for May's safety. Oh yeah, the little girl is May, by the way. After a light jog, we arrive at the mall and realise May has a fever and might die. But on the bright side, we did get to recharge our future framing device.
I can recharge my camera batteries.
Henry also tells us to go look for a military supply drop and get some medicine from it. Our bloke walks outside, sees a military supply drop and goes to get some medicine from it. I do love when a plan comes together. On the way there, something fun happens. And that was it. We're also introduced to the dust, but I'll get to that after we meet Henry. Gameplay's later. We scale the building and get to the precious crate. Our character then opens it and...
They packed useful things in those boxes.
Well, yeah, no kidding, mate.
Now,
They're hardly going to fill it with fucking balloons, are they?
Back to May.
Actually, this game does have some dialogue that states the really bloody obvious.
Too high to drop from here.
Mate, falling from here is the easy part. Sticking the landing is the difficult one.
Heads up, guys, son.
Look, this guy's bleeding to death. Shot him. Anyway, we pay homage to Jackie Chan on the way down and get the medicine to May. Luckily it's the right medicine, so the protagonist puts off looking for his wife and kid for the night. I mean, it's been a year, what more could one night hurt? Anyway, next morning he takes May to Henry, who has had all night to prepare a pretty dramatic entrance for some bloke, requesting we pick up a radio. Our bloke naturally wants to get back to looking for his family, so he asks why Henry can't do this simple task. Then Henry pulls out his theatrics and wheels himself into sight. BAM! Guilt-tripped, motherfucker. The bloke we're playing as naturally puts off looking for his wife and daughter for a bit longer, heading out to grab a radio. We're paid with bow and arrow, post-apocalyptic currency I can only assume. Okay, let's break from the story for a bit here. We met Henry, so let's talk about gameplay. The main obstacles in the game are climbing and shooting. They never intertwine, but they do lead into one another. You're climbing, and then there are some people to shoot. Climbing is pretty decent in function. I'd say it's nearly as smooth as Uncharted, if not more so. The fact that it just feels like it sticks around longer is the issue. And due to the survival nature of the game, a stamina bar is put in place to make climbing segments more about timing and resource management. Plus some sections have long routes and misdirections just to fuck with you. Once stamina is depleted, you have to click repeatedly to keep going, and this does damage to your stamina bar that's only remedied by, say, eating a can of fruit salad or shooting up. Items, for all their claimed sparsity, are so rarely used I had a stockpile of soda by the end of the game. For most of the time, climbing is just an exercise in hoping you're holding the right button in the right direction. There's also the music that plays every time the stamina bar is even vaguely challenged, and it gets grating really quickly. I suppose it does will you to get the climbing over with though, so well done. We've also got a grappling hook. It's fun enough, but the control is rigid, and it's only used in plot-related segments. Combat isn't just pointing and shooting. This is more like a puzzle where the solution always ends with bloodshed. Your weapons are a handgun.
You know what? I think you're too chicken to shoot.
A machete and a bow. Well, enemies die in one hit, but ammo is scarce, and your machete is only useful when used, say, as a surprise, or when in a one-on-one situation. Shoot things that also have guns and try to scare the guys with machetes. You can make them surrender by shooting the tough ones. To find out who's tough, you can interview people with your gun, like the guy who stated the obvious a few minutes back. Sometimes there's a fire or a pit knocking about, and you can back enemies towards them and then kick them into it. Once you've got all that down, combat just becomes a very rigid checklist with no room for original thought or creativity. The bow's alright. Our bloke must have been a master archer considering his proficiency 2 seconds after grabbing it. You only have one arrow, but it can be reused, and by the time I was done, that arrow had quite a body count. The only difference with the handgun otherwise is that enemies are not intimidated by the one-hit kill weapon that the protagonist has shown 100% accuracy with, as indicated by their dead friends who fell to the same arrow that will soon enter them. The game does have stealth, but there's very few instances of it. Most of the time your character just walks into enemy ambushes or just falls from the sky into them, and then you just kind of work from there. Also, why is everyone either holding a machete or a handgun? I guess those are the only things actually in the army supply crates. And that and grappling hooks for the most deathmatch apocalypse imaginable. We also have what I'm calling the Dust Zone, where much of the game takes place. It's a hub zone that links much of the objectives and arrives about an hour into the game. Imagine, if you will, a really dull place. Imagine you had to trek back and forth across it with a map that's mildly misguiding at first. Now imagine the area was caked in dust and generally visually dull. Now imagine that this dust asphyxiated you, so you had to stop travelling every once in a while to scale something, catch your breath, climb down and continue. That's the Dust Zone. Dotted around the Dust Zone and the story levels are survivors that you can trade certain items with in return for backstory and extra lives. And life systems feel so out of place, but I mean at least lives are plentiful and the game is pretty easy anyway. It's like Super Mario Galaxy 2, only post-apocalyptic, and not very colourful. And not having a wide palette of gameplay styles, and not having a fun gameplay style, and not being terribly original. Actually, now I think about it, Super Mario Galaxy 2 could be post-apocalyptic considering the end of the first, but it doesn't really make much sense. The oral rehydration salts, I never found a use for them. Anyway, after traversing the aforementioned Dust Zone, we continue the story by arriving at the plot boat. This segment features less climbing but a lot more shooting. To commemorate the shooting, we're introduced to armoured foes and shift aiming. We learn it at such a great time. Shift aim is free aim, and we need to shoot the armoured guys in the head. We do this by lining up the gun and the head, and then clicking the fire button. Then they die and we get armour. It's an extra step in the shooting people process, and I for one appreciate it. With the enemies dead, we get our radio, return to Henry, and then we get told to rescue May's mother, Linda. So we put off finding our wife and kid and do that too. Then we put it off some more and go to sleep for the night. Linda's really good with that radio because come morning she's found a ship. And then some bloke needs to do something again. They're worried about the dust, the blokes on the ship, and therefore they won't dock. We remedy this by scaling a tower and letting off the fireworks a mile or so inland so they know exactly where the coastline is.
I hope they like the fireworks show.
We slide down the building and continue. We head off to the fun fair at the pier, but shock horror, Henry and May are missing.
They took it from me! No!
We give Linda our pistol and set off with only a bow in hand, and we unlock our final superpower. A second arrow. Don't die from the excitement. Then we kill an enemy with it and get a handgun back. hardcore. After walking through this fair a bit, we encounter the final boss, a man wearing a helmet. To defeat this readily prepared beast, you need to shoot him in the leg, or simply walk to the next cutscene. But if you do that, he won't go down without a fight.
We've been looking everywhere for you. I'm so glad you're okay.
You came for me?
Of course, sweetie, I wouldn't leave you here. Now come on, let's go find your mother.
Okay.
With May found, we complete one final little platforming segment. Then we see off Linda and May. Some bloke stays behind, realising he's pretty long overdue for searching for his wife and daughter. They set off on a boat as the framing device plays one last time, and some bloke's wife cries as we zoom out to reveal he's either dead, or he's put everything he owns on a table and gone away for a piss.
That's
Henry's fate is
wheelchair.
unknown, so I therefore look forward to I Am on Wheels. Overall, the game is so outstandingly average that I'm kind of impressed with it. It just kind of exists, start to finish. I had nearly no emotional reaction to any of it. If you hooked me in this game up to a blood pressure monitor, you would have wasted some time. The game feels rigid and tightly controlled. The challenge is not only pretty easy, but constant throughout. In fact, this whole game never really feels like it progresses, it just kind of meanders start to finish. If the main character did die, which is very much suggested, it was either through boredom or as a response to it. He tried to off himself to make something interesting happen. It was off-screen, though. In the end, I Am Alive is a 4-hour game that feels longer than it is, but it doesn't make you feel like much happened. Well, bye.